Hello, and welcome. I am Chuck Mills, your moderator for today's Zen Dharma Exchange. Today, we are going to examine some of the most perplexing questions that the average person brings to religion. We're going to look at them from the point of Western religious tradition and Eastern religious tradition. Our guests today are two men who have devoted themselves to God as monks. I'd like to welcome Father James Wiseman of the Order of St. Benedict and an associate professor at Catholic University where he teaches the history of Christian spirituality. Welcome, Father.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to welcome Pohwa Sunim, a Zen Buddhist monk of the patriarchal lineage tradition and founder of the World Zen Fellowship. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll start the first question with Father James. Father, if all the world's great religions for thousands of years have taught us the importance of peace and love, why is there so much hatred and violence in the world and so much fighting?
Well, I suppose it's not only something you find within religions. I think there's something in human nature that regrettably always tends to put the outsider in a somewhat negative light. We see that so often, sadly, in race relations. You see it in politics. You see it among people of different nationalities. But because religion is so basic and for many people is the most powerful force in their lives, those who tend to be of another religious tradition often tend to be regarded with some hostility. I've sadly seen that in my own tradition. I've read about it often in the story of religious wars. And happily, I think we're beginning to get beyond that. Certainly within my own Catholic Church, the Second Vatican Council, for the first time in its declaration on the relation of the Church to other religions, had some very positive things to say about other religious traditions and urged us as members of the Church not simply to tolerate what one finds in other traditions, but actually to promote the values that are found there. And Pope John Paul II, trying so very, very courageously to follow out the teaching of Vatican II, has been doing that. He's often met with leaders of other religious traditions at the Vatican. He's gone out of his way, even with some criticism, to have leaders of world religions come together a couple times at Assisi to pray for peace. So I think that at least there are good signs for hope for the future, even though the past has been somewhat sad in this regard.
And I'd like to ask the same question of you, Sunim. If all the world's great religions teach peace and love, why is there so much hatred and violence and fighting in the world?
Well, that is a good question. Between truth and ourselves, it's very hard to decide which is correct, which side is wrong. But simply, I would like to say it, dust to dust, ash to ash. Yeah. Because neither God is wrong, nor human being is wrong. But at this very moment, what is really engaging with us, with the seeing, hearing, talking, and the sharing some ideas, it is very important. At that point, we can discuss. That's what I can say to you is dust to dust, ash to ash.
The second question will begin with you, Sunim.
Mm-hmm.
How can religion compete with the glamour, temptations, and stresses of the modern world?
Well, I'm just watching you out. Once a reporter of the Buddhist newspaper, he visited my master's master, his grandmaster. He said, "Master, recently monks are drinking and doing bad things. Yeah, it's not good for society. Yeah. At the time, my grandmaster was almost 100 years old. He passed to 105 years old. He asked him, "Did you see that monks are doing bad things?" He said, "No, I heard it." At the time, Master asked again, "By what means did you hear?" The monk said, "With my ears." At the time, the Master abruptly shouting louder. He said, "Corpse has ears. Why? Corpse cannot hear." After that, the reporter became a good practitioner. The truth within us. Yeah. Thank you.
Father James, let me ask you the same question. How can religion compete with the glamour, temptations, and stresses of the modern world?
Well, I'll answer in a couple ways. I think I'll sort of split off the stressful side from the glamour side and talk maybe first about stress. Now, I think one of the main causes of stress in our society today is what is sometimes called workaholism. People feel the need constantly to be on the run, on the move, to make more and more money, often for very laudable reasons, but wear themselves out in the process. Most religious traditions, if not all, have so emphasized the importance of balance in one's life. They often will have a particular day of the week that's meant to be a day of rest, a time to turn aside from what we sometimes call the rat race. With my own monastic tradition, I follow the rule of St. Benedict. Benedict is very clear that although the monks are not to be beggars, they're supposed to work hard and earn their living, he strictly limits the amount of time you should spend each day in work, because he knew that it wasn't good to lose the balance. Certain time for work, no more than 5 or 6 hours for the Benedictine monks, and then a certain number of hours for spiritual exercises with the rest of the community, and other times for your own personal spiritual exercises. And that calls for some discipline, no doubt about it. But I think to the extent that the religions can teach that balance, you can move away from the stress of the hectic workaholic rat race. Now, in terms of glamour, there's no doubt that there are a lot of very fascinating things that you might say is part of the non-religious world out there. But it's always struck me that religion itself has its own glamour. Within my own monastic tradition, the person we recognize as the father of monasticism is a Saint Anthony of the Desert. He lived back in Egypt around the 4th century. And the person who wrote his life said that if anybody, never having met Anthony, wanted to find him in a crowd, all he had to do was look for the person with the most radiant, joyful face. And I think that says a lot. St. Francis of Assisi, who's probably the best known saint within Christianity, we speak of his perfect